Another fruitful partnership Foyle Women's Aid has forged is with the Northern Ireland Housing Executive and Supporting People, a crucial fund that keeps women and children safe. Enlarging on this important aspect of dealing with the consequences of domestic violence is our next speaker, Anne Sweeney, Assistant Director of Supporting People and Homelessness, Northern Ireland Housing Executive. Anne.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you to Foyle Women's Aid and to Mary and the team for inviting me here today to join you for Foyle Women's Aid 40th anniversary. I've been asked today to say a few words to you about the statutory context of domestic violence and homelessness, as well as the role of the Supporting People programme in the provision of these services. But before I address these points, I'd like to touch on the question of why this is about more than our statutory duty for the Housing Executive. I feel it's very important for me to begin today with the reality of what Foyle Women's Aid is dealing with every day. And the shocking reality is that in Northern Ireland, according to Foyle Women's Aid, a woman is subjected to domestic violence every 21 minutes. Which is why I'm able to say with certainty that each of us in this room will have been affected at some point in our own lives by domestic violence. If we've not personally experienced it, then we may have a mother, a sister, a daughter, a friend, a neighbour or a work colleague who has. Many of us through our own work will also have experienced the impact of domestic violence, not just on women, but also on children. And we know only too well what the cost is to the families, to the communities, and to society as a whole. One of the impacts of domestic violence is that women and children may need to leave their own homes to find first a place of refuge, and then in some circumstances, a new home. Which leads me on to the main piece of homelessness legislation relating to domestic violence, which is the Housing Order of 1988. This order provides a statutory basis upon which the Housing Executive assesses homeless applicants. Priority need is one of the 4 key statutory tests carried out by the Housing Executive when assessing homeless applications. And there is a recognition that those who are subject to violence or the threat of violence should be recognised as having a priority need when presenting as homeless. The Housing Executive has a statutory duty to provide advice and assistance and also at times accommodation in these circumstances, and that's why our staff work so closely with Women's Aid in these cases, using an agreed protocol between our organisations to refer them to services such as those offered by Foyle Women's Aid. Before I talk about supporting people in the provision of those services, I'd like to reflect for a moment on where things started 40 years ago and the history of Foyle Women's Aid, which Avila has so colourfully recounted earlier, so I won't try to compete with that. But I did think that I was very struck by the fact that the beginnings of the organisation in the 1970s really reflect the tenacity and determination of individuals like Avila who were involved to provide a solution for local women living with domestic violence. Once opened, it's very clear that that first refuge quickly became full of women and children from the town and the surrounding areas. And even though the facilities were really basic, with families sharing rooms with bunk beds, it was very clear that this, from the start, was regarded as a place of safety and sanctuary. And I think this is where the Housing Executive enters the story of Foyle Women's Aid, because it's through the evolving partnerships between our 2 organisations that the immense improvements to the accommodations offered to women and children has been possible. Collaborative working over the years between Foyle Women's Aid and the Northern Ireland Housing Executive has meant that these services have been developed over time, increasing capacity to meet increasing demand. Through capital funding for buildings and ongoing revenue funding through the Supporting People programme, Foyle Women's Aid is now able to provide accommodation with support for 124 women and children. 24 families can access accommodation and support at Ashleywood and Rose House, and floating support is provided to a further 100 families. Many of you will know that Supporting People funding is allocated across a wide range of client groups, which fall into three main themes of homelessness, disability, and older people. The Supporting People programme is a significant aspect of the Housing Executive's business, with a budget this year of £72.8 million. Unlike many other areas of funding that have experienced cuts, the budget for this year has been maintained at last year's level by the Minister for Communities, reflecting the importance that is placed on the essential services provided through Supporting People. However, the demands on the Supporting People budget, which are already significant, do continue to grow, and in common with many funders, our budget position going forward means it's likely that we will shift from commissioning of new services to the remodelling of existing services, but the imperative is to ensure that these services continue to meet the current and future needs of service users. A recent review undertaken by the Department for Communities found that the Supporting People programme has achieved significant benefits for service users in improving the quality of life, preventing homelessness, maintaining tenancies, and achieving safety and stability. As a result of this review, over the next 2 to 3 years, Supporting People is implementing a series of recommendations, which will include a revised commissioning framework on how services are commissioned, a detailed assessment of the needs of the Northern Ireland population across all of these client groups, and the measurement of positive outcomes, which will indicate if service users have achieved independence, health and well-being, and if their personal goals and aspirations have been realised. These outcomes are particularly relevant to women and children who need quality of health and well-being and whose safety and stability have been threatened by domestic abuse. While there are certainly challenges ahead for Supporting People, we aim to see these as opportunities to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the programme, to ensure that it continues to meet the needs of vulnerable people, including those affected by domestic violence. To achieve this, it's absolutely essential for the Housing Executive that we continue to work in partnership with organisations such as Foyle Women's Aid, an organisation which, despite the challenges involved, continues to explore and develop new initiatives and projects which best meet the often complex needs of families affected by domestic abuse. Looking to the future, I hope that the Housing Executive, through Supporting People, will continue to contribute to these initiatives through our commitment to an approach which prevents homelessness, achieves positive outcomes, and most importantly, tackles the problems of domestic violence through partnership working. Today, Foyle Women's Aid is celebrating 40 years of helping women and children in the North West, and on behalf of the Housing Executive, I want to offer our sincere and really heartfelt congratulations on reaching this major milestone in your history. Under the management of Mary and her team, Foyle Women's Aid continues that tradition of determination and vision to achieve solutions which are innovative and creative in providing services to women and children on their journey through domestic abuse to rebuilding their lives. And I know that you have many more exciting and innovative plans for the future to come. So once again, can I thank you very much for the invitation to join you here today. I hope the rest of the events today and tomorrow will provide the opportunity that is truly deserved for you to celebrate your achievements over the past 40 years and to look forward to many more years to come. Thank you.